Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm Bud Kraus. Some of you may know me. I've done lots of presentations, and I want to thank the guys again for letting me do this, and also for being really nice to me over the years. So, and I hope one day we all get together and see each other, and instead of doing it this way. So, I work on and help businesses and organizations with their WordPress sites. Usually, a lot of it is website makeovers, seems to be my specialty. People come to me and say, we have this, old site that's in, PHP, and can you just turn this into WordPress and stuff like that. So I sort of, it's not that I don't ever do new sites, but I sort of like to do the makeovers and the redesigns. And also do a fair amount of teaching too. And in fact, I do private teaching. So if you need some private help, you let me know about that. And I think you'd find my fees to be pretty reasonable. Anyway, tonight, the story of tonight is a funny thing happened to me during the pandemic. I fell in love with Elementor. Now I know Elementor, warts and all, but I first used it like 5 years ago, and then I just stopped. And I used it on a project or two. Client loved it. I was okay with it, but I sort of abandoned it for 4 or 5 years, and then I got involved in a project this year, which forced me to really learn Elementor. And I just found myself just absolutely in awe of it. I sort of look at Elementor as not just a page builder, but a web design system, because that's what it is. And if you're not familiar with it, well, you will be a little bit more after tonight. So I'm just taking you over to my plugins page because I'd like you to see what's going on here. So I've already installed Elementor, which is a free plugin, and then Elementor Pro, which is not a free plugin. All Elementor Pro does is extend. It gives you all the cool stuff that costs more money to develop. And it's fairly affordable, but I have it installed here. And I quite frankly sort of don't know anymore what is free and what is pro. So, I mean, a little bit, but I sort of have gotten just kind of lose track of that when you're working with it. And then I also have the Generate Press Premium theme. So, and if you don't know Generate Press, it's sort of becoming a WordPress standard in that, it's very flexible. It's got all the things that are, the man that developed it is a guy by the name of Tom, I think it's Osborne in Canada. And he has a brilliant sense of what people need. And the things that are in the customizer, which I'm not going to get into tonight, but I'm just telling you that the features that are built in are just phenomenal. It's like, oh God, somebody's thought of a single page, for a single post or archive or everything that, you really need without overwhelming people of all the choices too. It's spectacular. One of the interesting things about using Elementor is that it's not really theme dependent. That is, you can build what is in essence your own theme using Elementor. Just to parenthetically, this is what's coming in Gutenberg next year, I suspect, when we see the full site editing experience, that the role of the theme is going to dramatically change next year. It already is changing. And the case in point will be what I'm going to show you tonight. So, and what I am going to show you tonight, I know it's a very long-winded way of saying all this, is how to take any Elementor template and turn it into something that's yours. And if you're just getting started with Elementor, this is a really good experience because, well, let me just do it. Instead of talking about it, let's just do it. So, by the way, I'm visually impaired, so sometimes it takes me a little while to figure out what the heck I'm looking at, or a little longer, so just bear with me. So I'm over here. I started a page, and I definitely would take questions at the end. So I'm going to just take a look at the home page here, and this is what we're going to focus on for the demonstration. And so when you use Elementor, you have to go through Gutenberg first, this is the Gutenberg user interface, and so let me just go straight to it, and I'm just going to click on Elementor. People always ask, well, if you use Elementor to build a page, does that mean you can't use Gutenberg? And the answer is yes, that means you can't use Gutenberg. You're sort of, because there are two very different systems. Elementor sort of says, okay, the page builder known as Gutenberg or the block editor, you're going to sit over there like in the corner, okay? We don't want you to go away because there's parts of you that we're going to need, but for the most part, you just sit over there and we're going to take over, we being Elementor. And in this case over here, I have, in fact, I want to do a little housekeeping here so I can make that interface a little smaller. That is the, whatchamacallit, the Zoom interface. Yeah, okay. All right, and that's more manageable. So if you're not familiar with this, I'll just go over this really quick because I know probably some people are and some people aren't, and I can answer questions. You have right over here is sort of the developing the building experience or the building section of it. And right over here on the left-hand side are these widgets. So widgets are not in Elementor, they're a little bit different than how the term is used in WordPress, but it's similar. And what I like to do is, I'll get up to this over in a second. You're wondering, what's this over here? Well, I'll get to that after I'm all done. So we'll just hold on to that. And I'm going to work with essentially a blank page. And you have these two buttons over here. So one, this might be more familiar to most people. You click on this and you say, oh, I want 3 columns or something. And now you have 3 columns. Okay, nice. But I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to choose a template. And here I go. Now I should tell you that all the templates that you're going to see here, these little thumbnails, these are all that comes with I believe these all come with the free version. You don't need to have the paid version for this. And I sort of liked looking at some of these templates because I was able to reverse engineer to see how something was put together. And I think it's really important to understand sort of the structure of how an Elementor page is put together. And I'm going to show you that too in a second. I will, at the end of this, remind me, guys, if I don't forget, make a note, somebody, to give you a URL on my site, my Joy of WP site, that gives you access or has a lot of links to Elementor templates. Because if you're if you're design challenged, you might love to have a template. Even if you're not design templates are a good experience to learn how things are put together. So you can see over here, you can have trends and popular, and you can just filter through, you can actually do a search. I want to see business themes, or I want to see blog themes, or whatever. But I'm going to spare you of all that. I already picked out my template, and it's right over here. And this is I designated this one as my favorite. And this is the one I'm going to work with tonight. Oh, I'll get around maybe a little later to my templates, but for right now, this is a favorite of mine that I've pre-selected. And I'm just going to click on that. And so let me insert this into my page. And here we go. So let's have also a look at what this looks like on the web. So this is going to go over here, and you're going to see, here it is in my browser. Notice there's all this spacing around the, this margin or padding around the edges of the page. So I can get rid of that pretty easily. In fact, let's just, well, we'll get to that in a second or two. What I want to do is sort of break down how this template is laid out. And it's laid out like probably everything in Elementor. There are 3 important concepts to get down. One is that everything is organized inside of a section. So the section is like the basic building block. And it's really easy to see the sections because they just pop up right over here. So this is a section. If I scroll down over here, oh yeah, here's another section. And oh yeah, here's another section. And so on. So this page has one section after another section after another section. And then within the sections, you'll always find, that's not a good example. Here's a good example. You'll always find a column. So the columns are pretty easy to find. You just have to hover over the left-hand corner. And you can see like a little column-y icon over here. Here's another one. Here's another one. So you have 3-column layout in this section. And then within the section is the actual widget. And you can see that right over here. In this case, this is a heading widget. And if I click on it over here, well, you can just see it just turned into heading. Same thing with here and here. So the architecture of any template in Elementor or anything that you would create from scratch would always be section. Inside the section is a column. Inside a column is a widget. And the widgets, going back to where I was a second ago, is really content, is HTML, okay? It's text, and it's heading, and it's images, and it's embedding videos. And there's just a few of them over here. Obviously, I'm not going to go through it. The WordPress standard widgets that you see, you'll find them over here. If you get, there's lots of plugins. One of them is called Essential Elementor Add-ons. It adds a lot of free widgets. And then, of course, if you want the better ones, you have to pay for it. But you get the idea. It's just like, you're not stuck with these widgets. It's just like in Gutenberg, you're not stuck with various blocks. In fact, this corresponds really to blocks, what blocks are in Gutenberg. Okay, so I said I don't like this. I want this to be flush. And that's pretty simple. This is kind of a cool thing. So I'm just going to go to the bottom left-hand corner. And personally, I find these to be a little on the tiny side, but that's me because I can't see anything. So I'm going to click on this over here. And here it says page layout. So you know how you can use what am I looking for? Different layouts. And in this case, the default would refer to the generate press theme layout. But of course, I'm not stuck with that. I can either use the prefabbed Elementor layouts, or you can build your own layout if you know PHP and you know how to edit files, stuff like that. It's not impossible to do. Okay, and I'm just going to use the full width. So Elementor full width, and I'm going to. So this is a layout file or a layout scheme that comes with Elementor that I'm going to go with, and I'm just going to hit update over here. I don't have to, but I am, and you can see without having to go out to the site, it's full width. And in fact, you don't have to go to the site. You can just click over here and get rid of that, and you can see, that's nice. In fact, it looks like, wow, this looks like, you're going to be editing inside the browser. Yeah, yeah, you can. So let's just leave it like this. And all right, so I'm going to make some changes to this. And warning here, I'm not going to probably win any design awards. And that's not the purpose of tonight. The purpose is really to show you like what you can do and how you do and stuff like that, rather than, making it look really pretty. Okay, that's always my excuse. So first thing I want to do is I want to look at this section over here. And if you really want to break it all down, you could always go, there's a little thing called a navigator right over here. And you could look and see this. It's a section, section, section. Wow, that's really great. You open this up and you can see in this first section over here what's in there. Well, not really that much. It's just a column, and inside that column is this right over here, this heading, and then right over here, this lorem text over here. And so it goes. I'm not going to click through all of these, but you can see how the page is organized. And it's really neat because you can just click on one of these, and it's automatically, it takes you right over here and it's highlighted to this. So Navigator is a really cool thing. As you're building pages or working with templates, it's really handy. Oh, by the way, you can drag and drop these too. So you can move things around and drag. It's right within the Navigator itself. So kind of nice. Let me just get that out of the way. Sorry that I opened it. I think I can just squeeze that out of there. Okay, so I'm looking at this section over here, which has this image of a guy who's in the background. It's clear it's not an embedded image, it's a background image. If you're a CSS lover, which I am, Elementor is really the CSS dream tool of all times, because if you have a really good foundation in CSS, you will love this. You'd say like, well, I also like to code in CSS, but wow, this is so much faster and easier and funner. So I'm going to get rid of the guy. So he's in the background of the section. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the section, and I'm just going to check over here. It does say section. And when you're working in a particular area, you're going to see something like layout, or maybe content's going to be over here, and then style, and then advanced, which is going to apply to the entire section. So I want to get rid of the background. And this is what's called, and now I know it's a background image, but in Elementor talk, they call it a background overlay. And I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to choose my own image. So I am going to go to the media library, and I found this woman over here that I'm going to swap out. So I'm going to put her in there. And I have something in the way, so let me just get this out of here. Okay. And there we go. So he's gone and she's in. But I want to do a little positioning. And so again, if you know a little CSS, you know exactly what I just said. And I would go over here to position. And these are all the typical background image positioning style rules. But I want to just, so I could go to customize it and be very specific and use an XY axis and all that, but I'm way too lazy for that. So I'm going to go to center, and I'm going to go, let me see. Let's try center right. Okay, so I just moved her just a little bit. That's fine. We'll leave her alone. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to, I just realized I took something out of order, but we'll get back to it. That's okay. And I also want to change the copywriter typography. So want to make sure I'm in the right, yeah, I'm in heading, perfect. This would be a style, and I want to change the typography. So I'm going to just click on typography over here. Oops, I don't want to do it that way. I want to click on this little guy over here. And I'm going to change the family to something totally different. Now, we're pulling Google Fonts as far as I know, okay? I'm fairly certain you don't have to stick with Google Fonts, but for tonight, I'm sticking with Google Fonts. And I'm also going to go to Times New Roman. And you can see I have some options here, such as the size, okay? And I can also change the weight to something a little heavier. Now that's a little too heavy. Yeah, we'll just leave it like that. And style, meaning italic or whatever. I'm just going to leave it just like this. That's good enough. I want to move this too. I want to reposition this text. Now, there's a couple ways to move an element on a page. One of them could be use absolute positioning, but warning lights to me go off. Well, you got to really know what you're doing, and you get into problems with mobile. So I'm going to do something make a simpler move. I'm just going to go over here where it says advanced. So I'm still with the heading element. I'm going to go into advanced, and I'm going to use negative margins to move the word copywriter. I want to delink this, otherwise I would be applying my change to all four sides, that is top, right, bottom, and left. I just want to do it to the top. And negative margins, let's see if I can go negative. So I'm going to move it up just a little bit, okay? And that's okay. So I'm going to leave it that, and then the other thing I'm going to play around with is this text over here. So every time you use the text widget, it always throws off this lorem text. But I'm going to show you something really cool. So and this is one of the strengths of Elementor. So I'm going to remove all of that text, and I'm going to use one of the cool things and the most important aspects of Elementor is the ability. I think they call it dynamic content is the correct term. And that is the ability to pull content out of the database and populate it on a page. So this is what I love about it, because when you start thinking about it, like, if I have information that I want to display, it's in my database. How do I do it? Wow. So I'm just going to click on this little guy right over here, and it says, yeah, right there. And so these are all the different kinds of data types, I guess, that are in the database. And I am just going to use, let me make sure I get the right one here. Yeah, user info. So you guessed it, user info would be like if somebody subscribed and they, they have a login, and they, it would be first name, last name, stuff that you would see on a user page in your admin. And I'm going to go over here and click on this little guy over here, sort of the tool. And for that, I'm going to choose in this drop down over here, well, what do you want? Okay, what do you want to display? And in this case, I want to display somebody's first name. So first name it is. And then this other little field or this little option over here, advanced, you can say like, and you can already see it says my name there. So I can say like, hey there. Okay, and it should show up, hey there, bud. And I'm just going to save it right now or update the page because I don't want to screw it up. Now, of course, the user is only going to see, you have to be careful and there's ways of dealing with this, but this is only going to apply when actually that's not true. What you're seeing there, hey there, bud, is only going to be for logged in users. Okay, so you don't have to worry like, what's it going to be like if they're not logged in? If they're not logged in, they won't see anything. So hey there, that's just one little example of how to pull content or information from your database and populate it on a page. There's so many variations and things that you can do with this. I just wanted to demonstrate. Here's just a little idea. You know, a lot of people say, well, how do I get somebody's name on the page like that? Well, the Elementor, it's really cool. Now, it's, by the way, parenthetically, I have to do this. Gutenberg's going to have this too, but I just don't know when. Okay, and I think they call this the query block. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, so I just left that over there. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit over here and take out some sections. And I'm going to take out this section over here. So it's really easy to knock out a section. You just go to the section, click the X. Okay, and I'm going to also take out, I don't want this section in over here. So I'm going to take that out. And over, I don't want this either. So I'm going to take that out. Okay, and now what I want to do is work on this section a little bit. Okay, so by the way, this is not going to take all night. So if you're wondering, God, is this going to be? No, I just really want to show you some of the highlights and some of the things that you can do just by taking a template that exists and read it and just tweaking it or making some changes. And in so doing, you learn quite a bit about how Elementor works. Anyway, so here's a section, and it looks like, it looks like there's spacing between the top of the section. There's probably some margin spacing going on here. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I want to do is put in a call to action button for each one of these boxes. So there happens to be, not a surprise, there happens to be a button and a simple button, nothing fancy. I'm just going to drag it into here. And I'll leave everything the way it is, except I want to make some small changes. I just want to make this in the center. I want to make the size of this. Of course, you put in your link over here, so I'm not going to put in a link. Size, a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to make it a different color. In fact, I want the color to match this background over here. So how can I do that? In fact, I like this color so much, I'm going to set it up as a global color so I could use it easily throughout the site whenever I want. Okay, so back to this section I go, and back to where I was a little bit ago. Let me just make sure I'm in this section. And I want to go into that background, and I want to look right over here, and it says color. So I'm going to look at this color over here. Now, I happen to know I'm making a mistake deliberately, okay? So if anybody says, but that's not really the color, I get it. So I am going to just click on this and find the hex code right over here. I'm just gonna make a note of that, copy it. And I am going to now go down here and I'm going to apply the background color over here into this button. So let's do this. Let's take that color style. There's probably a background over here. But I said I want to use this color over and over again. So let's go to the background color. And I'm going to put it in here. Okay. But here's another one of Elementor's strengths, which is you can save this as a global color. And the way you do that, so that it applies wherever you use it throughout the site. And I'm going to call this will not come as a great surprise, but I'm going to call this tan, okay? And here comes more rain. Wherever you are, I hope you're enjoying the rain. And I'm going to click create. Okay, and you'll see how I use that in a little bit, where it's stored and how it can be used. So here I am, and I decided, I really want to have another button. I want to have a button over here. So let me just do that again. Now there's a couple ways to do this. I'll show you the long way and then I'll show you the fast way. So I'm just going to put this button in over here, right over here. Okay. And God, now I have to go all through this whole rigmarole again, like center, large, color. No, you can just go right over here, back to make sure you're with the button. Okay, I'm in the button with the button widget. Right click on this, and then you're going to say copy. And then you're going to go over here, and you're going to paste the style. How about that? That's really cool. So, you know, it just saved you a whole lot of steps. If you've made something once that's going to be repeated, that's one way to do it. But there's another way. And here's the even faster way. So I could just go over here to copy and just go right over here to right click and paste. So that's even faster. All right, so far, okay, now I want to move down a little bit more, and I actually want to take out, or I want to create a footer in here. So for that, I am going to just do something totally new and put in a 3-column layout over here. And let's see, so I want to put in the background over here. So, you know, how about that global color I was talking about? Okay, so I'm going to go over here. This is the section. Here's the background. Let's see. Let's go to background color. And for that, I click on this over here. A lot of things to click on, by the way. I sort of sometimes think Elementor is web design like color by numbers. And you click on this, and I can't see it because I'm going to have to make my screen my browser. Yeah, and there it is. Nope, it's not there yet. I have to make it smaller yet to show up. Yeah, there it is, tan. It's at the top. Okay, so I'm going to click on tan. And right away, I see it's just not the right color. Huh, it is a little bit different. I really want it to be this color, not what it is. Not a problem. We'll get to that in a little bit. And so that's one of the nice things about those global colors is that you can just set them up and use them as many times as you need to use them. And so for right now, I'm going to put in some lorem text right over here. So I'm going to take, in fact, I am going to go over here and drag some text right into here. So if you're familiar with Gutenberg, you know, you just click on something and the inserter and the box shows. It's a little bit, it's a different feel to it for sure, but you get used to it. And then if I want to, again, I'm just going to copy this. So copy, and I'm going to paste over here. And oh, I see that I have an extra column here. I don't really want that column. So if I just click over here, right click on the column, delete, and voila, it's gone. I could also, one of the really nice things about Elementor, one of its strengths, I think, is the ability to vertically align content within a column. So let's just take something like this. I'll just shorten that, okay? And I'm going to shorten this too. Let me make this a little bit different just to show you what I'm talking about. So no, by default, content will vertically align to the top of its containing element, but you don't have to do it that way. So I'm going to click on the column, and the column has a column has a layout feature over here, and then for vertical alignment, this is what's kind of nice. So I can say I want this to be in the middle. Now that sort of looks like the middle. And for this over here, I want to do the same thing. Now, I could copy and then paste the style, but I just want to go back to over here and then vertical align, and I'm going to do middle. So you get the idea. Is that middle? Let me just, let's try bottom. I don't know why it's not working. Well, anyway. So I'm going to let that go. But one thing over here I don't like, or I want to, let's say, make so it's very easy to resize your columns. And by the way, it's pretty easy to make this stuff responsive too. I'm probably not going to get too much into that other than maybe to talk about it, but if somebody asks me about that, I'll be happy to answer. But see this over here? I don't want this over here. It's really bad form to have, I think, to have your social icons at the very top, because you're sort of telling your users to get lost. I want you to go onto the social networks. And if that's what you want, put your social icons at the top. It's usually not what you want. So I'm just going to drag this. So there's all these elements are drag and droppable. And I am going to put it in over here. Okay. Now, a couple of things. I noticed that this is not the same shade. How do I fix that? Well, you know, that's not hard. All you want to do for that is go into this left-hand corner button over here, Site Settings, and here's where you're going to find all these global settings, global fonts, global colors. Well, I'm interested in the global colors. But now I want to change this tan color. Well, what I should have done at first is to actually sample or get the correct color. So let me get out of this. Sorry, I took that a little out of order. And I want to go to, and you know, we're going to fix this too, because I don't like this either. We'll come back to that. But I'm going to go back to here and make sure I'm in the section. Okay, it looks like I'm in the section. Go over here. Now, there's two colors they had over here, like a secondary color. That's the one I should have gotten the first time around, but I deliberately didn't do that so I can show you this. So I'm going to copy that, okay? And then let's go, sometimes it's hard to get out of that. Let's go over to the, back to where I was. And let's go into Site Settings, Global, and let's adjust this where the tan is. And we're just going to take out that code and put this code in and save it, or update. Okay, and you will see, yeah, and now it matches. How about that? So that's one of the principles of this is if you have a color palette throughout your site, let's say you have a primary, secondary, tertiary color, a color for text, a color for this, you can just set everything up through your global colors. And if you make a change over here, it'll just change site-wide. So it's fantastic. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to close out of there. And a couple more changes, and then I'll show you a couple other things, and that'll be about it. Oh yeah, I don't like this. What about this? So height, you know, is a very sensitive measurement in web design. And but in Elementor, there's a couple options that make it pretty interesting. And one is they have, so here's the default for height, but they have the ability to set a minimum height. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to pull this down over here, and you can see I'm getting better. Okay, so wow, there's a whole bunch of really cool things you can do with height. That's one of the things I like about Elementor, because when you code height, it's like a nightmare and a half. You really have to know what you're doing, and I can struggle with height. So this is pretty good. This is a little bit better. And I also want to do one or two other little tricks. A nice little effect. You can see at the bottom, this is really getting so popular now in web design, is the use of what is a scalable vector graphic to give you the appearance that this is a tilt or a triangle over here. Well, it's really easy to play around with that and really change the design in radical ways of a page or a site. So here I am. I want to make sure I'm in the section. And this does apply to this is something called the shape divider. There are also, by the way, Gutenberg plugins that do the same kind of thing. Anyway, let me go over here, and I'm going to go over. So I'm in the style of the section, shape divider, and I'm going to work. Yeah. So I'm actually want to focus on the bottom of this section element. So I click on bottom, and it says tilt. Well, that sort of makes sense to me. It kind of looks like a tilt. So I can change that, and I'm going to change it to fan overlay. And then I can also adjust all kinds of stuff. All right, I'm not going to do but you get the idea. I can adjust stuff. And I also want to then do something over here for the top of this element. So this is still a section. And I'm going to go into, let me just see. Yeah, I'm going to go over here, shape overlay, top, fan overlay. Let's see. There we go, right over there. And you can see I can make adjustments. So I have a fan overlay at the bottom of this section and a fan overlay at the top. And like I promised you, this would not be a thing of beauty, but you get the idea that, well, you can do all kinds of stuff. And this particular feature in Elementor is really nice. Now, when you use a scalable vector graphic, which is what all this stuff is, one of its core strengths is that it'll work beautifully in for mobile. That's a whole other subject, scalable vector graphics. All right, that's enough of this page. I want to do one more thing, and then I'll take questions, and hopefully I didn't go too long or too short. So I want to save this. And you can sort of see up here, so I want to like edit this, but oh, I can't do that because this little color tells me, no, you can't do it. You have to edit it like, well, let me show you. So I'm going to click on it. And what this does is sort of unlocks this now, and it lets me edit this right over here. So this is what's called, this is a part of the template builder system or the theme builder system of Elementors. So now when I make a change here, it's going to apply to the entire site, okay, which is great, okay, because like if you change navigation. So in this section, we have two widgets. One, I'll click on this one over here. This is the site title. And it's just pulling the information from your database. Now your site title is stored, when you fill out in the settings or in your theme. There's lots of places that you can give your site a title. And that's where this is coming from. So I can't put in anything over here. In fact, this little icon's telling me, I noticed that this is being pulled from the database. Over here on the right-hand side, there's another column. So you can see the columns just lit up pretty nicely over here. And there's another one. Let me just click on this over here, and this is navigation. So with the navigation, you create the navigation first in your menus, like you know really how to do it. I named this one primary, and it's just being pulled into here. And that's really about all you have to do. There's not a whole lot. There's other options that you can do, but I just left it alone. Of course, the beauty of this is if I change this template, this will change through the entire site. And Elementor has a lot of these things. You can do this with footers. You can do this with sidebars. You can do this with headers. All kinds of repeating content can be managed through the use of the theme builder. One last thing, as long as I'm on the subject of theme builder, and then I'll be happy to answer questions, let's see. No, I want to go, I want to leave this. It takes a little while to get used to the flow of Elementor. I'm not, I hate the fact that I have to go through Gutenberg to get to what I want, but that's all right. But right over here, let's see, Elementor templates. If I go over here, see where it says theme builder? Well, I built this obviously before the demonstration, and here it is. And it tells you right over here, the type of this template is a header, and it appears on all pages. So what's really cool about these theme builder templates is that you can target stuff for different either pages or posts or archives or specific pages. So not just any post, but a specific post, or not just any page, but a specific page, or you can target it to a specific taxonomy. It's really cool stuff. So, I mean, because I just to wrap it all up, I really was forced to learn Elementor because I got involved in a project this summer that, there was a lot of discussion whether or not we would use Gutenberg or Elementor. And I was sort of saying, well, we should use Gutenberg. And the people were saying, let's don't do that. So that's what the long and short of this is. So hopefully you learned something here. And if there's any questions, let's go. Oh, I want to do this before any questions. on my site, can I just drop this in somewhere? Where would I drop this in? This is the a post on my site.
You could just put it in the chat,
yeah,
bud.
I will. Can I just talk real briefly? This is talk about a remake. This site has been is in the process. It's not done yet of being remade with Elementor. So I just want to say, I took a Genesis site that used just HTML code for the page builder. In other words, the classic editor. And I took it from that and I went all the way from there to Elementor. That is like going from the 19th century to the 21st century. It's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of things you have to think through. And one of the things that really helped me was building templates for different kinds of content on my site. Anyway, where do I do that? So do I, yeah.
There's a chat in the Zoom right next to participants.
Yeah.
Second from the left if you hover over.
Oh, I see, chat, okay. So I'm just gonna drop that in. And is that gonna be to everyone or let's see?
You got to make sure, you have to make sure you have all panelists and attendees selected.
Okay.
Drop down in the chat.
Oh, I see. Do you do that at the top or what? Options. I don't know. Where do I?
Send it to me in Slack. I can post it.
Okay, I'm gonna do that right now. And while I'm fumbling around, so thanks, Mike.
Sure.
I did it twice. Hold on.
Does
anybody have any questions? Okay.
Yeah, Joy or Bud, there's questions in the Q&A tab. If you click open,
we can read them. We can read them to you.
Because we'll be here all night.
So. Yeah, here. Let me just post this in the chat real quick. Just bear with me for 1 sec. And
by the way, while you're doing that, I just while I'm still on camera, this is one of the best speaker gifts ever given out at WordCamp. Okay, can you see what I'm talking about here? Okay, I guess.
You mean that? You mean this thing?
Yeah, whatever. You can. Right.
I agree.
Great.
Cool.
Great.
All right, let's go through some Q&A. This first one was earlier. My website is built with Sydney theme and Elementor. Is anyone familiar with that? Are you familiar with that theme by any chance?
I am familiar with Sydney theme.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I have. Yes, I forgot who makes Sydney theme, but I think it's Email makes Sydney theme, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway.
Cool. Ralph, if you are
I'm familiar with that theme, yes.
Ralph, if you are on our Slack, we can put a link to that. We have a Slack. We didn't mention this in the beginning. We usually do. We have a Slack channel for what we call Jersey Press, which includes our meetup, plus the Morse County meetup, the Bergen County meetup, and the New Central Jersey meetup. We have a help desk. Ralph, you can ask that question there, and or maybe even just oh crap, I may have been signed out.
Speaking of, can I just interject real quick, relative to the new Central Jersey meetup. I'm going to be, you're going to get sick of me because I'm going to do another presentation, not on this, on Monday, on WordPress 5.6. I think it's Tuesday, I'm sorry. It happens to be December 8th, the day that WordPress 5.6 will be rolled out. So it'll be pretty timely. What are the changes in store for 5.6? That's what I'll be talking about.
Cool.
Okay, yeah.
So let's go through. All right, so Ralph, if you, Jason, if you can throw that link in there, that'd be great for the Slack in the chat, and I'll just answer that live. All right. Another question. So you mentioned Elementor being like a web page builder. Would you compare it to Composer from the early days of the web?
I don't remember Composer. Can you help me out there, Mike?
I
Wait,
don't
wait,
remember.
Composer? Yeah,
Composer means something completely different to me. It's
Yeah, no,
standard for
I
PHP.
would, yeah, I would compare it to like Visual Builder. What is it? What it's called, like Visual Composer. I think it's made by WP Bakery, is
yeah.
the company
Well,
that makes it. So yeah,
They've changed-
it's similar
they've
to that. I
changed
mean, it's
their-
a yeah,
They changed their name a few
their branding.
times.
Yeah,
I
but
hate to
yeah, it's
disagree,
similar
but
to that. It's a page builder.
I'm going to disagree. Okay, I'm sorry. I think it's way more. No, really, because I don't want. I think it's way more advanced than WP Bakery.
That
Which
is true. Yes.
Yeah, which is using a very old interface, some very old concepts. I think Elementor is very forward in its design and its usability, and so
Yeah, it's also full site. Like you can do header. You know, you can do headers and
Yeah, I
footers
don't-
now. Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I also would argue that Beaver Builder does exactly the same thing, just a
Correct.
different UI.
that's right.
So
That's-
it's like Elementor and Beaver Builder are like literally the same thing, just implemented in different ways.
The tricky thing about all these different systems is once you decide on it, you can't really. You're sort of like you're not going back. Okay, you're not gonna. It's gonna be really hard to say, okay, I have Elementor now. I want to use Beaver Builder. It's not that you can't use both for the same site, but you really don't. You want to stay with one system, and when you're commit to the system, you really should be thinking about this is for the long term. And so that so is Elementor going to go away? Or Beaver Builder? No, I don't think those are going to go away. In fact, they're more popular now than ever. For good reason.
Well, eventually, I think we're going to see some tools that allow you to migrate sites that were built in a page builder. So Beaver Builder, Elementor, Oxygen. These tools will allow you to migrate your sites from those systems to Gutenberg.
There's also,
but I think we're
Breezy.
6 to 18 months away from even seeing anything like that. Gutenberg is still maturing.
Right.
Gutenberg doesn't have full site editing yet. Gutenberg is still changing the UI every few weeks. In the meantime, when we need these full site editing tools, we're kind of stuck with choosing a page builder. You're stuck with, choosing Beaver Builder or Elementor or WP Bakery, Visual Composer, or Oxygen, and just kind of sticking it out for the next 6 to 18 months until Gutenberg matures, so that you can do everything that you can do in the page builder.
I have a question for you, Cameron. Do they have tools for migrating from one page builder to the other?
I have not seen those tools yet, but
I don't think that anybody's going to build one to Gutenberg. Honestly.
No one's going to do that because
the plugin's never going to do it, and I don't think anybody's going to. I don't think anybody's going to do that. I think.
Well, somebody might do it, but it's not going to be the company.
But
it's going to be some third-party person. Yeah, it's going to be some third-party person that wants to leave using Elementor, so they're going to write some script to do it. Daru also mentioned in the chat about Divi. Divi is my favorite. Sorry,
but you'd have to make a you'd like for anything that
page builder.
For anything that Gutenberg's missing, you would have within that migration plugin, you would have to write some equivalent of a block for it, and then that site would then be dependent on that block. So wherever that comes from.
That's right. And so for most of your smaller sites, you're literally going to be rebuilding those pages as opposed to doing a migration.
Yeah.
For larger sites where you have thousands of pages, the content migration, you're really going to need some kind of a scripting solution in place to migrate your content from one solution to another.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Liza, real quick. Elementor, what I understand, they're not at this point focusing on enterprise, mega sites and stuff like that. They're still really with small sites.
I don't think they would scale for a mega site. So
and they're not focused on it.
Right.
But my understanding is whatever. Go ahead. Let's ask the question.
Anyway, Liza asks, not a developer, just a PM doing some research. My company was hoping to use this with their headless WordPress site. Also, they have a lot of custom Gutenberg blocks, and we're hoping to only use Elementor on one page type while continuing to use Gutenberg elsewhere. It sounds like that would not be possible, but I want to ask, if you're using headless WordPress, I mean, I don't like, like, it would really matter, like, depend upon what your front end is, because this would be, like, this is not for headless, as it is a plugin that is for WordPress and wouldn't be on whatever site is ingesting your WordPress APIs to display the content, be it whether it's Python or Node or something else that is displaying your content. You wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that page builder there. Bud, do you have anything else to?
No, I mean, I don't know how it would work. So what I'm trying to think of. So no.
Well, it's the same thing with Gutenberg. You'd have to like if it was a PHP project, you could probably bring it in somehow. Same thing with like maybe Elementor, but like it would be a lot of work.
Yeah, it's
a lot of work on the front end to be able to parse all the stuff that's being delivered by the back end. Like Gutenberg is an open source project, so there is a Gutenberg. Like Gutenberg itself is just JavaScript. Like there's a Gutenberg plugin for like Laravel content management systems and for Drupal as well. So theoretically that parsing could get built into something else like Gatsby or Eleventy or Netlify or something. Whatever you're using. But again, it's like you might have to do that work on the front end.
Yeah, it's not just a plug and play. It would be quite a bit of work. Cool. So Anne asks, I'm not familiar with Elementor. Would that only apply to websites? Where can I get info for Elementor? Thanks.
Well, there is an Elementor site, so elementor.com would be the place you would want to start. In fact, if you're really going to start with a practice site or a dummy site, download the Elementor plugin. It installs like any other plugin, and you can do a lot of stuff. Now, you're not going to be able to do all the things like, for example, the theme builder and all that. That's the pro version. And I bet today they have, breaking news, they probably have a Cyber Monday sale. Who doesn't? If it isn't Cyber Monday, the normal fee is, I think it's $49 for a site license, $99 for a free site license, and $199 for a 1,000-seat or 1,000-site license. So there's no gap between the 99 and 199. It's either 3 sites or 1,000.
Done. So nice. Cool. Rick asks, "Hi, Bud. Can you suggest some Elementor site that have really impressed you with their use of the tool?"
Mine. No, I'm just no, because no, I can't do that. But here's what you could do. I guarantee if you go to elementor.com, I know there's a showcase, and you can poke around there and see what sites were made with Elementor. I have to say, and this is sort of a side note to the question, that there are Elementor as a whole. Elementor is an ecosystem, like WooCommerce and custom feed, advanced custom fields. These are gravity forms, whatever. They've developed a whole following and a whole ecosystem under themselves, and a community. And there are tremendous videos out there. Elementor has a great YouTube channel to help you learn, and as well as they do webinars live and recorded that have been tremendous in helping me work through some of this stuff as I learned it. So, a lot of good stuff.
Cool. Cool. This is a good question. Amy asks, "Bud, thanks for this presentation. How compliant is the code Elementor is generating with accessibility standards generally?
No.
Have you run tests, and how and would these Elementor features compare with Generate Press on its own?"
Yeah, I can't answer that question directly. And this also, there's also an interplay. I mentioned with themes are not important. Well, themes still have a lot of code in there that can be accessibility blockers. Okay, so there might be an impact on that. I will say that a lot of people have complained over the years about Elementor being too slow, and I don't really find that to be true. I think it's pretty good. Now, I personally, I will tell you this: get ready for a lot of divs. okay, and a lot of Elementor special classes that are placed into the HTML code. I mean, good night. There's just tons of this stuff. So, you know, I don't know, you know, there's a lot of things that people do that make sites inaccessible. Forget about the code, like not putting in alt text and stuff like that, you know.
Have you tabbed through your site to see if like,
No, no.
That's a good, for anybody that's looking to see how accessible their
Yeah,
site is, like the good first step is to tab through your site and make sure that all the links are accessible. You know, and that'll tell you a lot about the accessibility of your site, to make sure that like if you're visually impaired and you're tabbing through and you see that you're able to get somewhere on the site, a link, and be able to click enter and be able to get to the next page of the site. Also, I know a lot of developers and a lot of people don't like the way like highlighting an element is, like if you see that blue line around an element, if you're tabbing through, they find that unappealing. A lot of people, that's actually really important for accessibility, at least some indicator of where you are. It doesn't have to be that blue line around, but something that tells the user that they are there. So if you're want to learn a little bit more about accessibility, and it's a deep topic, but that's kind of like,
I mean, regardless
the bare
of
minimum, tab through your site. See.
I do want to say just real quick, and this really is what I'm going to talk a little bit about next week, though. In WordPress 5.6, there's a new stock theme 2021, and that theme alone meets a very high level of accessibility. That is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 level AAA. That's very high standards to meet, and apparently they've met, which is really remarkable.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
cool.
great.
I'm excited.
Regardless of what you're using to build your site and manage your site, you should be running your site through the Wave accessibility tool and fixing any errors that pop up.
Yeah.
You know, I think some of the warnings, I mean, it really depends, but some of the warnings you can probably ignore, but you should fix anything that's considered an error from the Wave accessibility tool.
Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely, and you know, the W3C and the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, you know, there's a level of accessibility. There's certain things that you must do, and certain things that are sort of like good ideas. It depends on what, you know, if it's a government, or you have different legal requirements that have to be met. Well, a lot of times they refer to this guidelines, and like I said, there's a lot of, but Mike came up with a really, I think, sort of a ground zero idea here, which is to tab through links on your site and see if they open up, or see if you can open them up with just tabbing and hitting the return key. And if you can't do it, you know, that's a very low threshold, believe it or not, because a lot of people can't use or don't use keyboard and mouse. So, or they don't use a mouse or can't. So how do you navigate if you can't use a mouse?
If you go through our archives of meetups, we had one that was kind of right in the beginning of the pandemic. I think it was in March or April. That was given by Aaron Jorbin, all about accessibility. It was recorded. I believe the link is in the comments if you want to check out the recording from that. If you're new to the group, or if you want to refresh, or if you missed that particular meetup. Really good. He goes through a lot of stuff for accessibility. So if that's something you're interested in, I would advise taking a look at that recording.
I just want to say, can I just say something really quick?
Sure.
I believe it or not, 1,000 years ago, I taught a course at Pratt Institute called Web Accessible Design, something like that. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about things that were just theory at the time. There was no browsers that supported these things. Mm-hmm. And I would say that over the 20 years, that at least one thing has happened. People have become much more conscious of accessible design. And, you know, 20 years ago, they looked at me like, why would you even teach that stuff? You're going to make websites for blind people. And I said, that's nothing, you don't even know. You know, I can't.
Well, it's more than that, but also like there's a couple reasons, like, but also the lawsuits also making people are encouraging people to do it even if they didn't want to. But we should strive. we should strive to, as a community, to make our sites as accessible.
Yeah,
as,
and I'm grateful that the WordPress community does pay attention to that. Sometimes not enough, but certainly they don't turn a blind eye to that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's been a very popular subject.
It is.
This year.
It's getting better. I mean, if you want to do your history research, you can look up the lawsuit against Domino's.com, where they refused to make their website accessible to people with disabilities, and they got fined a huge amount of money. And I don't know what the end resolution is, but I'm sure it's still ongoing. But you know, corporations and nonprofits are getting sued left and right for their sites not being accessible to people with disabilities. So it is something you should pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Generally speaking, and also if you make your site accessible on one level or another, you're making it better for everybody else too. It isn't just for people with disabilities. It's sort of like, you know, we're talking about electronic curb cuts. You know, curb cuts are good for everybody, not just people who are blind.
Right, and the thing is that like people could be experiencing some level of disability at any given time. It could be that you have a child in one hand and you're only navigating a site with the other hand. That's considered a disability as far as.
Is it really?
Yeah, in the sense that you're making your site accessible to that person. It's not a disability in the sense of how we define that, but I'm just saying that you're making your site accessible for someone that it only has access to one hand at that moment.
Okay.
That idea. Let's move on.
Just to recap, I mean, out of the box, the page builder's accessibility is not terrible. It's not 100%, but it's not terrible. So I would just go with that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Moving on. Tom asks, does it make sense to use Elementor to work on a page that's been originally built with a classic editor? Can Elementor recognize the constructs that exist on that page? Or is it better to simply start over from scratch to build a new version of the page?
You can't do the first thing. It's virtually impossible. This I do know about because my site that I'm working on, the JoyWP, it basically, if I took what I created in the classic editor, it doesn't, and you open it up in Elementor, the entire, it all falls apart. It just doesn't work. So what I did was I had to build templates for, I have 2 free courses and there's a lot of repeating format in the way I did. So you build templates and then there was a lot of copying and pasting into the templates. But if you just think that you're going to take content that was created in the classic editor and just open it up in Elementor and voila, it'll all fall neatly into all the box and all the, all the blocks and box. It's not going to happen. So
cool. Awesome. Mary asks, can you convert a classic editor site using a theme? Mine is in Modernize to Elementor, and if so, how? Thanks. I'm not sure I quite fully understood that one.
Well, Elementor is going to work with, I suppose it works with every theme, or close to every theme, unless some weird situation. But what you'll find if you start working with it, you'll say like, it doesn't really matter what theme I'm using, because I can set global colors, global fonts, global layouts, global this, global that, irrespective of the theme. So the theme doesn't really play the role that we think of in the past. So I like Generate Press with or without Elementor. That's sort of my thing. But I think you can sort of you can use it almost, you can use anything you want. So I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Cool. Jocelyn asks, have you created your own templates in Elementor?
How did I create my own templates? Well, let's just take a look. So I'll be happy to do that. I guess that's the best way to do this. So here's, what am I looking for here? You have to find, just give me a second and I will find this somewhere. Here we go, templates. Saved templates. I'm just thinking of which way I want to go here. Okay. And so here are some of the templates that I created. to help me. And for example, I have these, I have a course called the WP A to Z, where you learn WordPress step by step, start from the beginning, build a typical website. And I needed to create 2 different kinds of templates. One would be for people who are logged in and people who aren't logged in. I will just take this one. Let me just show you this over here. I want to do one that sort of makes some sense. And if you go over here, so I'm going to make this smaller too. And the way this works is that, so I don't, this is obviously just the template, but you get past, and I can populate the name of the page and all that, but you get past all that, you can see it has sections, course progress over here. This is another column, and that this is left blank here, so I would just put in the Vimeo URL when I build the page, and then each one of these things has a running time of the video. I would put in the information over there, information about the video I'd place over here. This I would fix because it's a little bit of a mess. And then I built out the entire template. And then if I didn't want to use a section, I would just click this out and do this. So the way it works, this is sort of like just showing you I built the template and all the fancy navigation over here. But the way it would work is if you, let me just go out of here. So let us say I was creating a new topic on my site, and I use LearnDash. If you know LearnDash, it's one of the most popular learning management, turns WordPress into a learning management system. And it's also one of these kind of has developed its own ecosystem too, very popular. So if I take topic and I want to create a new topic, and I'm just going to do that, and I could add a title. I'm just not going to do any of that stuff. I'm going to go straight to Elementor. And you still have all your regular stuff. You can add it. Generally, you would add the title of the page. If you have tags and categories and stuff like that, you can still use it over here. In fact, that's where you would use it. But if I go right into Elementor, what I would do is, so here, now I click on the templates. Now here's where it's my templates. And I search for the template that I want to use for this page. So I'm going to just look right over here. And yeah, this one's very similar to what you just saw. So I just insert it, say yes. Okay, let's go. Yeah, and then you start populating. So this is the page. So I showed you the template before. Now I brought the template into the page, the topics page that I'm going to create. And you just start populating away. Now, in this case, I already had content, so I was just really copying and pasting and putting stuff in there. And then I had this navigation system over here that I could, one of the really neat things about it is that you can decide which of the ones that you want to expose, you want to open up first so people see it. It's really great, but that's how, so you really, the key about this is if you're thinking about doing this kind of thing, you should contact me because I'll give you a lot of pointers and I'll tell you that it's all about building the template correctly. So for example, I didn't build this correctly because you can see it's all messed up. So every time I used it, I had to adjust it. Okay, that's just the way it worked out. Now, a very important point about this is if you make a change to the template, does that mean all the pages that you use to create that template is changed? No. Not in this kind of a template. So there's 2 kinds of templates. There's that template, and then there's the theme builder template that I talked about earlier. In this case, I'm using it right for over here. So if I make a change in the theme builder template, yeah, that will change across the entire site. You have to know, what, and what a nice kind of cool thing too that Elementor has, speaking of templates, they have these things called globals. So they're pre-made widgets that have information in them. Let me just see, if you just drag one in. So something that you're going to use over and over again. I'm just going to throw it in here. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Okay. And so if I created something where I wanted this information about, like say a blog post, you want to subscribe to my newsletter or something like that. Well, I created a global that could stick in there. Now, here's what's kind of neat about it. If I unlink it, that means if you edit it, it won't affect the template. But if you say I'm going to edit it, then it affects the entire, in every instance where it's used, it would affect it. It would change it. So there's a lot to this. And I really suggest, you do contact me, because planning out, it's really an information architecture exercise. It's a design exercise. It's a how you're going to migrate the content exercise. It's a really interesting thing. And it just takes a lot. It took me I did more work on it took me a number of months in and out of projects and other things that I do, just to work out all the templates. And once I worked out the templates, then the rest of it was fairly easy to do. But I kept saying, boy, it's a good time. I understand why I spent so much time working on those templates. The templates is where it's at. I hope that was long-winded. I hope that was okay. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
Ignacio has a question. Is there a recommended theme for blog pages? I don't know if this is really related to Elementor, but
well, when it comes to WordPress, no. The answer is no. There's not a recommended theme. Anything will do. Any theme will do, really. Because remember, WordPress at its heart, even though it's evolved, it's still a heck of a good blogging platform.
Yeah. Cool. Ron asks, how much more bulky is the code generated by Elementor versus, say, hand coding?
Well, hand coding, it's way more. Okay, it's just, are you talking about like standard HTML files like we used to do in the good old days or the bad old days? There's a lot more. Let me just, I'll give you a case in point.
I think a better question would be, how does it maybe compare to, say, Gutenberg or something like that, which would be kind of more equivalent versus, hard coding, which is.
I think it's
a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's way more.
Yeah. But with anything, that flexibility comes at a cost, which
exactly
is
right. That's the whole point.
Overall, the page builders output HTML files that are, I would estimate, 20 to 30% more in size than like a standard HTML output. But the added flexibility you're getting with the page builders, offsets that. And so you kind of have to like think about who your audience is. Is your audience on broadband 100%? Is your audience on smartphones? You have to think about how they're accessing your site as opposed to how heavy the pages are.
You could also consider things like, if you are a little bit more in the know of development, or have a developer you're working with, setting up some page caching, so you're not so you're making less requests. You could also even make your WordPress site a static site if it becomes a thing, if things don't update very often and speed is an issue. There are ways to improve performance.
One of the nice things too, one of the reasons why I went to Elementor is to cut down on the number of plugins, because as my site grew, it got more and more. A plugin for pop-ups, a plugin for accordions, a plugin for this, a plugin for that. Now, I know that all you smart developers out there, you don't have to make plugins for that. You can code it, but not everyone knows how to do that. So I wanted something more streamlined, where all those UI options like accordion and tabbed and this and all that stuff, it's all built into Elementor. So I don't have to manage updating 50 different plugins and stuff like that. I really wanted to cut down the number of, I think this is something that's overlooked a lot with something like Elementor, is that you're going to get rid of a lot of these plugins. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. So
you and me both, bud.
Well, you code your own, okay?
I'm going to always get rid of plugins.
And my idea of coding a plugin is, I take everything in the functions file and I make it into a plugin, okay? Big one.
That's a thing.
All right, okay, that's a plugin, right?
All right. moving on, Jocelyn asks, thank you for a good presentation. I picked up a couple of tricks I didn't know. Love Elementor. So that was more a comment.
Okay.
So good job,
I like
bud.
that. All right, thank you.
Great Careers asks, is there a presentation that exists on how to build a template? Lynn said this.
If you go to the, I guarantee if you go to the Elementor YouTube channel, you're going to find it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mary asks, she's following up with her previous question. Please excuse my earlier question. That was confusing. I meant if you have a 6-year-old site built in the classic editor using the modernized theme with about 360 posts, can you convert it to Elementor?
Well, yes. Do you have to do all 360 posts? That could be a little.
Well, you could do it over time, I assume.
Because you're not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because.
Or you could just have it retroactive, like all your posts retroactively are not Elementor, and your new ones.
Mary, I got to tell you, here's what I found. Okay, I have about 100 posts on my site. Some of these were so old, I didn't bring them into the new site. Just the information is just too dated. What do we need? Something that I wrote 6, 7 years ago. It's out of date. I don't have to.
Did you 301 redirect it to a more updated post?
No,
that is about the same.
Yeah.
Don't lose your SEO juice, buddy.
I know. But I'm not getting knocked. So, I think Google, I looked at my Google Search Console and I looked like I'm okay with what I did because I was well aware of what you just said. Like, uh-oh. Google knows that old content, Google wants you to get rid of old content. So you're helping Google. So you shouldn't get penalized for getting rid of old content.
Next time we got to do this Q&A like the Hot Wings challenge with Hot Ones, where we have Bud progressively eating hotter and hotter wings as he's answering these questions. I think that would be more entertaining for at least me. Cool. We've got through everybody though.
Okay.
16 questions answered. Good job, Bud. Great presentation. Great introduction to everybody looking to start using Elementor.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for continuing to come to our meetups. I know it's been challenging. I know that our online virtual meetups are different than our in-person, and I know we all miss our in-person meetups, but we'll get back to it at some point, hopefully next year. I'm hoping.
And Mike, before you sign off,
sure,
don't forget next week, December 8th, the day WordPress 5.6 comes out, there'll be a meetup, Central Jersey, right?
Yep, that's our brand new meetup. It's their second meetup. Bud speaking.
You're gonna have plenty of me, and then I won't say anything for a year.
So yeah,
Not likely.
Bud will go back in his cave for a year.
Right. Yeah.
Go back into hibernation. You got another great job, Bud. Thanks so much. Good job, Bud. Again, in 2 weeks, our holiday party. I don't really know what that entails other than just a hangout, and it happens to be around the holidays. Maybe we'll, I don't know, do something holiday related.
And the hangout is everybody can talk, so it's not a webinar. It's not a webinar. It's
everybody can talk.
Everybody who has video and audio can talk.
Can participate.
And it's usually, sometimes it turns into a help desk. Sometimes it's just general chit chat. So please join us on the 14th.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again, everybody. And
thank you.
With that, also the recording will be posted on Meetup when I get it. Pam, this is Pam's account, so it'll get sent to her and she'll send it to me. And then I'll post it for everybody to see or whoever missed it. But have a great night, everybody. And thank you.
Take care.
Bye.